Oh boy, this is going to be an adventure. Welcome back to Dad's Garage. Adventures are us. So, we've got a 2001 Chevy Silverado here today. Will not start. History on truck. Problem started when battery was connected wrong. Lights don't work. Airbag light, security light on all the time. Bright light indicator on all the time. And installed new BCM. Someone else programmed it and it didn't hold. That's concerning. New engine and transmission installed. Engine has an EFI live. Dang, my camera died halfway through reading that. So, new engine and transmission installed. Engine has an EFI live tune installed. It's controlled by the knob on the dash. The pod on the dash is for gauges only, edge 5. Sometimes it's nice to get this in the customer's own words. So, let's see what it does. Basically, nothing. Acts like a dead battery. I don't think the headlights or anything work. The light flashes, but the lights don't, the exterior lights don't work. Okay, so let's assume that the batteries are dead. I checked and made sure that the cables are tight on both sides, okay? So just sitting here, battery voltage is at 11.58. If I put it in power supply mode, it's gonna show me how many amps. So if it draws a whole fuck ton of amps, or a lot of amps, then we know the batteries are dead. But look, it's only pulling 21 amps, 22 amps. If both those batteries were truly dead, we would probably be seeing a lot more than that. So now I have another feeling of where I'm gonna look real quick. So let me pause that. So the two 12-volt batteries are bussed together in parallel, positive to positive and negative to negative. They are joined right here, where clearly somebody's been messing with it. Is it loose? I don't know if it's super loose, but look at that. I can move that with my finger, so that's loose enough to cause a faulty connection. I don't know, that seems pretty dang loose unless the studs just turn in. No, it was really that loose. So I'm gonna need both my hands here to finish this, but I think you get it. So now that's tight. Let's see how many amps does this pull when we are charging our allegedly dead battery. Surprisingly about the same. I don't know, maybe these batteries are just weak. But I'm gonna leave it like that for our testing. Yep, still acting like a dead battery. It is possible that those batteries are just tired and weak. Alright. So this is after installing a jumper pack. Hey, look at that. Don't tell me it was just the loose thing. Although, yeah, we do have some other things going on with this truck. The headlights don't work, stuff like that. So I charged and load tested both the batteries. I've got both batteries disconnected from each other and from the vehicle. This is a fully charged battery. I even took the surface charge off of it. This is a 690 cold cranking amp battery. So we're going to load test it at 345. And it just immediately fails hard. So this is a dual battery system. We're going to replace both batteries. I don't even need to test the other one, but it's about the same age. So I'm just going to replace both those batteries. Okay, so I confirmed that the batteries are bad. I've got a jumper pack and chargers installed so I can continue. On the headlight diagnostic, the dimmer doesn't work at all. The high beam indicator is stuck on at all times. And neither the low beams or the high beams work at all. So I'm going to take a look at some data because I know that this is not a simple headlight circuit. So we're going to take a look at some data and inputs first and then go take a look at the wiring diagram. Okay, body control module. I already looked through all the data lists, so I know where to go. Input 2, headlamp relay feedback is on at all times. Head beam switch is on at all times. Flash to pass switch does toggle, but I can't really do anything with the dimmer. I can pull it back and it does a flash to pass, but I can't like flip it forward backwards. It feels like it's gonna break. Turn signals do work. Okay, let's go back to the outputs. Headlamp power relay is commanded on at the moment. But like I said, the headlights do not work. So we're gonna go to the schematic, which I've already printed out and highlighted a bunch of stuff so we can take a look. Let's go do that. Okay, so here's the headlight wiring schematic. It's there's a lot going on here. Let's just start with our headlight bulbs right here. The high beams and low beams, left side, right side. We would obviously need power and ground to the bulbs to get them to light. So we get our power switched on and off from a headlamp relay. And then to turn the relay on and off, we've got a ground at all times and then a switched power to the relay. So it looks like if we follow the schematic to the headlamp switch, we've got a hot at all times into that headlamp switch. And if we had it in the headlamps on position, it would send power directly from the switch up here and turn that relay on, okay? In the off or auto position, it's just parked there doing nothing, so we would follow this path. So this is where the body control module would actually have the control of turning the headlights on and off in the auto position. So I've played with this switch over here and nothing works, okay? So we're probably going to look into these circuits, but it is a little concerning. Why does the body control module see a high beam on all the time? Because if you follow this over here, you know, if we were using our high beams, we would obviously need power, but we also need ground too. And we're switching a ground from low beam to high beam here. Yellow wire goes here to the dimmer switch, and it's grounded at all times through that dimmer switch in the low beam position. If we pull back on the flash to pass switch, it would temporarily connect from that circuit to that circuit, and the BCM could see that as an input. And it looks like it would also ground the high beam circuit, because that little dashed line means that the switch contacts are connected. We've also got, right here was the BCM control, so he can control that. So I know it looks like a lot, and yes, there is a lot going on, and there's maybe a lot to understand here, but it's pretty simple if you just, you study where does the bulbs get its power and ground. It's easy to understand that way. Where do we start our testing? The easiest possible place to start would be right here at the underhood fuse block, right at the headlamp relay. So we would pull that out, and we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 things to test. I need a power at all times here. If I apply power here, my bulbs should turn on. They should light if these fuses are okay, assuming my ground is okay. And then I could also test for ground at all times here, and I could test for switched power here, all in one place, and then decide what to do from there. So let's go do that. Headlamp relay. So that one. Physically looks okay. Who knows what's going on here? Looks like whatever they've got tapped in is tapped into the park fuse, so I don't know if that's related or not, but we're just going to continue looking at the headlight circuits for now. Okay, I got the power probe here. It makes this noise when it's hot. It makes this noise when it's grounded. I've got my relay jumper, which makes it easy. This is my hot at all times to the headlight switched power. This is power out to the headlights, which it should be off right now, so that's okay. Should also have a ground at all times. I do. And this is my power from the BCM or from the headlight switch. So let me reach through and do the flash to pass switch. If I can reach that far, I can. You can hear the relay click, so that's a good thing. Let me stick that on there. Do the same thing. Oops. So that was with the key off and just using the flash to pass switch. It seems to be working. This is with the key off and the headlight switch on. So that's working. This is with the headlight switch off and the ignition on, the key on. And this is where we're getting that high beam on all the time problem, but our headlights are not working. So let's poke in here and check our headlight switches, or fuses. They're both hot on both sides. Okay, so let's go back to that wiring schematic real quick. Okay, so back here on the wiring schematic, we confirm that the relay and the control circuits are more or less working normally, except for the fact that it is stuck on at all times with the key on, and it thinks that we want high beams at all times. We'll talk about that in a second. We do know that the bulbs don't work. None of them work. We do know that both of the fuses are okay and they are receiving power. So that means we need to take a look right at the bulbs for one thing to see why they don't work. And we need to verify that they have both power up to them and ground up to them, okay? So remember, in the low beam position, we should have ground at all times on the yellow wire. In the high beam position, we should have ground on the purple wire. So the fact that the high beam, the BCM thinks that the high beams are being requested at all times, no matter what we do with the dimmer switch, suggests that this high beam ground circuit is stuck, pulled to ground. It's shorted to ground on this purple wire most likely, but I'm wondering if that were true, why wouldn't the high beam bulbs work? So anyways, we're gonna go straight to the bulbs for, to answer those questions. So let's go see. Take a look. We've got aftermarket headlights with LED bulbs. So let me pop that out real quick. This is what it looks like after they're pulled out. We've got some sort of LED CAN bus adapter. Don't know what's up with that. Might have to just disconnect. I'd say disconnect both of these on both sides and then just see if that high beam thing goes away, and then test the circuits without these interfering. Okay, so take a look. Headlight circuits. This is the high beam connector, that's the low beam. I've got a ground on the low beam. I've got a hot. I've got a, what is this? That's a no ground, and I've got a hot. So at least my low beam should be on. I have the headlight switch on right now. So with the headlight switch on, I've got power to both the low beam and the high beam at the same time, which is what the diagram says we should have. And I've got ground to the low beam and no ground to the high beams. And we already know that if there was a ground here, we would have a high beam indicator on the BCM, or at least that's what it would say. This is key on with the headlight switch off, and I have no ground to the high beam. This is with the key off and the headlight switch off. Got no ground to that one. Take a look here. Now I've removed the headlight dimmer switch, and before I disconnect anything, let me see if I can zoom in and show you. Kind of looking a little green and crusty on the back here on some of these wires. Not really enough light to show you that. This is the dimmer switch connector. Look at the green crusty wires, and this wire is barely even holding on by a couple strands. The connector is discolored like it's been hot. So it would not surprise me if this is exactly where our problem lies. This connector right here cannot be disconnected, so let me zoom out here. Okay, so this connector cannot be disconnected. The harness actually goes down here. This is your connector. It looks like, what do we have? We got anything tapped in here? Somebody's been messing with things. No, it's most likely just a faulty dimmer switch. So I'm going to disconnect that end of it from the rest of the vehicle, and we're going to see if our problem goes away on that high beam circuit. So I've got the main harness connector disconnected, but I actually need to only remove this portion of it. This is the switch portion of that connector, and then I need to reconnect these ends so I can continue testing. Give me a second, let me do that. I mean, I can't do it one-handed. You can kind of see how that comes out. It slides out, but I need both my hands to do it. Okay, so I've got the dimmer switch and turn signal switch disconnected, and we still have a high beam indicator stuck on at all times. Let's take a look at BCM data and see if it says that, you know, the same thing. Look at that. High beam switch circuit still says stuck on at all times, and that's with the switch and all of the headlights disconnected. So let's go back to the wiring schematic and talk about it. Okay, back here on our schematic, what did we learn? We know that we have power and ground to at least the low beams. Those should work. We know that with this dimmer switch disconnected right here, and with the headlight bulbs disconnected, the purple wire going into the BCM is reporting that it is seeing this high beam circuit grounded, and that's with this disconnected. So by disconnecting this, we've cut off the ground path here. So this wire it shouldn't be touching anything. It shouldn't have any path to ground at all. So all that's left really is to disconnect the body control module and make sure that that wire is either shorted to ground or not. If it's not, then that would be a faulty body control module. So let's go do that. So I've since disconnected the battery. Here's the body control module connect. And allegedly, the body control module was replaced. Remember that customer note? There we go. Get all three of these disconnected, and then we're going to test the high beam indicator circuit for being shorted to ground, and prove whether this body control module is either good or bad. Check it out. I've got my meter connected to ground. I'm going to do a little self-test of our equipment. Yep, it's working. We're going to take it off of continuity beep mode. That'll show us our actual measurement. Okay, so let's test for a short to ground on the purple wire, terminal B. I can't remember what the diagram said, but I'm gonna just touch it right there. And what do we got? Can't quite do it. Standby. So I've got the ohm meter back probed on that purple wire, and it does look like we have a short to ground on that circuit. So we have everything disconnected and the wiring is shorted to ground. So that would explain why the body control module thinks that we want the high beams on at all times. Now we've got to find that short to ground. So let's figure out what to do about that. Okay, back here on the wiring schematic. Oh wait, let's look at this one because I reprinted it so that we can focus on where the problem actually lies. The only place that we could have a shorted wiring here, because we have the headlight bulbs disconnected, we have the dimmer disconnected, and we have the body control module disconnected. Somewhere on this purple wire, or one of these purple wires, is a short to ground. It's touching ground somewhere. So now we need to find it. So the easiest way to do that would probably be to just use a bulb, such as a test light, right? Attach that test light to a hot at all times B+, and then if this wire has a path to ground, your test light will light. So we're going to install the test light. The light will light, most likely. And then we will wiggle the wiring until that light flickers or goes out, and then we know that we found it. So here we go. Okay, so I've got my test light connected to battery positive. I've reconnected the battery. I've got my probe test in. Oh my, it broke off. So I'll have to fix that, but I'm gonna tap in right here on this purple wire, which is grounded, and the light, whenever that light is lit, we've got a short to ground. So let me fix that real quick. Okay, as you can see, the light is lit. That means that the wiring is shorted to ground. And now I just need to take this harness, I need to start wiggling it. I mean, it goes from left to right and it goes inside the cab, so potentially, who knows where this could be shorted. So I'll show you what I find. I don't think I'm gonna show you all this. Okay, so it's pretty clear somebody has been putting a bunch of money into this. It's got a built transfer case, built transmission, new engine, all that. Another thing that I noticed is all of the wiring has been rewrapped in that woven polyester anti-abrasion electrical tape that I like to use. So when they had all this out, they literally rewrapped every inch of the wiring harness. So I don't know if they modified it or anything yet. We're still looking. Okay, back on the diagram. I did a quick visual of all the wiring that I could see. I did not see anything obvious. So I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here to this underhood junction block connector and disconnect right here, because by doing that I would essentially be cutting this circuit in half, and I could decide if the short was up here by the headlights going left to right on the truck, or if it's on the inside of the truck in the cab, or one, where it passes through the firewall or something. So that's the plan to help me narrow down where is my wiring shorted. Had to look it up real quick. Junction block connector 3 is red. Junction block connector 4 is green. We're gonna pull that junction block out and disconnect those and see what happens. Now, I didn't really show it, but I'm taking this cover off. I'm gonna lift this up. There's one wire that's been tapped in here, but I don't know if that's related. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. There's the red connector and the green connector. Gonna disconnect that and see what happens. I moved the test light just so we could see what happens when I disconnect this. Lots of turns on that thing. No, is it going out? Look at that. Okay, and then I'll just stick that back in. Watch, oh yeah. Okay, so I am tapped in on the headlight side of the wiring harness. So that means that the problem is between here and somewhere inside the cab, most likely. So now this time I reconnected the green one and I disconnected the red one, and it's still shorted to ground. So let's go talk about that on the wiring diagram. Okay, let's talk about our findings thus far. We decided that we were going to cut the circuit in half, essentially, at the underhood junction block. I disconnected C4 on this side, so I've disconnected the headlight side of the circuit with that green connector. The short went away. And then I plugged it back in, the short came back, and I disconnected the C3 connector, thus disconnecting this side of the circuit and leaving the headlights connected. So my test light is connected on the headlight side. I have a short to ground that exists until I disconnect the C3 red connector. Do you know what that means? It means that the short to ground is inside of the underhood junction block, because when we disconnect this side of the harness from the junction block, the short goes away. And we know that the short is not on this side, so it has to be internal to the underhood junction block. So let me see if I can take that apart and actually find something. Okay, no, I take that back. It's not in the underhood fuse block because something doesn't make sense here. This red connector does not match what the schematic says, so I'm suspecting that the schematic is wrong. So I decided to leave all this disconnected and then move my test light to the interior side of the harness. As you can see, when I'm tapped into the interior cab side of the harness, I still have a short to ground. So we still have a wiring fault, and we have some wiring schematics that are not exactly accurate. So might have to look into that too. I realized where I went wrong was that I misread. It's not C3, the red connector we wanted to disconnect. It's the C1 gray connector. But either way, with this disconnected, we know that we have a short on the body side. So I'm just going to disconnect this to verify that it's not inside of the underhood fuse block. Okay, gray connector is now disconnected. Light is still light. It's still shorted to ground. We've got some sort of wiring harness problem inside the cab somewhere. So probably between the firewall and this connector or that connector. So shouldn't be that hard to find, other than the fact that there is zero access. So we decided that the shorted wiring is inside the cab, and I wiggled everything. I inspected every bit of the wiring that I could. I couldn't find any obvious problem. And then I decided, when I was looking at the dimmer switch, I was like, maybe I disconnected the wrong side of that connector. So I unbolted the other side, and the light turned off. So that means that our dimmer switch is shorted to ground internally, right? So let me show you that on the truck. Here's the dimmer switch connector again. This is also part of the ignition switch connector. I disconnected the black one earlier, but I should have disconnected the gray one. And then when I came back and decided that I had made a mistake, I found it. Yes, this is our problem. It's shorted to ground inside. A simple mistake earlier on the diagram kind of wasted my time and a little bit of your time, but at least we learned together how to find exactly where a shorted wiring is, right? So light is lit, means we're shorted to ground. Disconnected the dimmer, makes it go away. So faulty dimmer switch, which we were already going to replace anyway because of the screwed up wiring. This connector does not actually come off. It's all, solidly connected, and then the harness goes down all the way to that connector. So I'm gonna replace this, and that should take care of it. Check it out, got my new dimmer switch installed. The battery is currently disconnected. I'm gonna fully reassemble everything and then show you guys results, okay? BRB. And I know somebody's gonna ask, dang, how did you get that off without removing the steering wheel? Well, I just took a T25 bit and a 1/4-inch wrench to get to that one bolt there. Check it out, we got new headlight bulbs, new batteries, new terminals, all that good stuff. Got headlights now. That's a plus. Oh yeah. Starts right up. Our headlights are now working correctly, but we do have a security system thing going on, so that might be related to when they replace the body control module. I don't know, I'll have to look into that. So let's see. So actually, the security light stays on, the ABS light and the brake light stays on, and I did a quick check and there are no codes related to the security system. I'm going to see if the customer is even interested in me going further, because this is not related and it's going to obviously require more diagnostic charges. So if he doesn't want to go forward with that, then you get what you get.